The classroom was massive, built to hold students from 100 different worlds. Some cadets sat in chairs. Others floated in special tanks. A few needed breathing apparatus that hissed quietly in the background, but they all shared one thing in common. They were the best warriors their planets had to offer. Commander Velthas stood at the front of the room, his forearms gesturing at the holographic display. He was Kryn, a species known across the galaxy for military excellence. His scales were dark purple, marked with scars from 4 centuries of combat. When he spoke, everyone listened. "Acceptable casualties," Velthas said, his voice carrying easily through the vast chamber. "This is the foundation of military strategy. Every commander must understand what losses can be sustained while achieving victory." The display showed numbers and graphs, battle scenarios from countless wars across galactic history. Day One sat near the back, watching quietly. He was human, one of only 12 in the entire academy. His uniform was crisp, his dark hair cut military short. He took notes on a tablet while other cadets whispered to each other. "The standard doctrine is clear," Velthas continued. 15 to 20% casualties are acceptable for a successful campaign. 20 to 30% indicates a costly victory. Anything above 30% is considered a failure, requiring immediate reassessment of strategy. A Talrexian cadet raised one of her tentacles. "Commander, what about defensive operations?" "Good question, Cadet Lix. In defensive scenarios, we accept up to 40% casualties if the strategic objective is held. The key is understanding the mathematics of survival. A force that loses more than half its strength cannot maintain cohesion or effectiveness." Dewan continued writing. He had heard similar lectures back on Earth, though the numbers were different. Much different. "Now then," Velthas said, "let us examine the Battle of Corvin Ridge. The Union forces faced a numerically superior enemy. The commanding officer had to decide whether to retreat or hold position. Who can tell me what the correct choice was?" Several hands went up. Velthas called on a Morgathi student, a massive creature covered in thick armor plating. "The commander should have retreated, sir. The projected casualties were 35%, above acceptable limits and correct. The commander did retreat, preserving his forces for a counterattack 2 weeks later. This is proper military doctrine. Survival of the force ensures future victories." That was when Thas spoke up. He was Vrelian, tall and lean with skin that shimmered blue-green. He was known for being arrogant, proud of his species' warrior tradition. He sat near the front, and when he turned in his seat, Dewan knew who he was looking at. "Commander," Thas said, his voice dripping with mock politeness, "I have a question about humanity's military doctrine." The room got quiet. Relations between human cadets and the others had been tense. Humanity was new to the Galactic Union, barely 5 years since first contact. Many species viewed them as primitives who got lucky enough to develop space travel. Velthas's eyes narrowed slightly. "Proceed, Cadet Thas." "Well, sir, I was wondering about Earth military forces, specifically their Marines." Thas turned fully in his seat now, making sure everyone knew he was performing for an audience. "What is the casualty rate of an Earth Marine?" "Their planet barely survived its own wars. What could they possibly teach us about acceptable losses?" Some cadets laughed. Others leaned forward, interested. The human students tensed, but they had been trained not to react to provocation. All except Day One remained perfectly still. Velthas considered the question. In truth, he did not know much about human military statistics. The integration of humanity into the Union was still new, and much of Earth's military history remained classified or simply unstudied. He was about to redirect the question when Daewon stood up. "Permission to answer, Commander?" Every head in the room turned. Daewon's face was calm, showing no anger or embarrassment. He stood at attention, waiting. Velthas gestured with one hand. "Granted, Private Daewon. Please enlighten us about Earth Marine casualty rates." Daewon looked directly at Thas. "Which rate would you like, sir? The rate for Marines who take casualties or the rate for enemies who face Marines?" Confused whispers filled the room. Thas frowned, unsure if he was being mocked. "What are you talking about, human? Obviously the rate at which your Marines die, that is what casualty rate means." "I wanted to be clear, sir, because the two numbers are very different." Daewon's voice remained level, professional. "The casualty rate for Earth Marines in combat operations is approximately 2.3%. The room erupted. Cadets from a dozen species began talking at once. Thas laughed out loud, the sound harsh and mocking. "Impossible," he shouted. No military force in the known galaxy maintains less than 8% minimum casualty rates during active combat campaigns. You are either lying or ignorant of your own military's failures. Velthus held up a hand for silence. The room gradually quieted, though the whispers continued. He looked at Daewon with new interest. That is indeed a remarkable claim, Private. The lowest casualty rate on record is 5.1%, achieved by the Kryn Stellar Guard during the Reformation Wars. Are you certain of this number? Yes, Commander. 2.3% averaged across the last 200 years of Marine Corps operations. A Talrexian instructor named Vex spoke up from the side of the room. That is statistically impossible, unless your Marines avoid combat entirely or possess overwhelming technological advantages. Which is it? Daewon turned slightly to address the instructor. Neither, sir. It means we are very good at what we do. Thos stood up now, his face flushed with anger. This is ridiculous. You claim your primitives are superior to trained warriors from species that have been fighting wars for thousands of years? No, sir. Daewon's voice got quieter, which somehow made it more powerful. I am saying we have more experience at killing. The distinction landed like a physical blow. The room went completely silent. Even Velthos seemed taken aback by the bluntness of the statement. Thos sputtered, trying to find words. Experience? Your species only achieved spaceflight 60 years ago. You are infants compared to the rest of us. In space travel, yes, sir. Daewon nodded. In warfare, no. We have been fighting wars for over 10,000 years. We have been killing each other since before we had written language. Every weapon system you see in this academy, we invented versions of it centuries before we left our planet. We made guns, missiles, bombs, chemical weapons, biological weapons, and nuclear weapons, all while fighting only ourselves. Velthus leaned forward, his interest now fully captured. Private Daewon, are you saying humanity achieved spaceflight while still in a state of global warfare? Yes, Commander. We reached the moon while two massive power blocks aimed enough nuclear weapons at each other to destroy our planet several times over. We built a space station while fighting 3 separate wars on our own soil. We developed faster-than-light travel while small conflicts raged across 4 continents. Another cadet, a peaceful species called the Brendi, spoke up nervously. But why? Why continue fighting when you could have destroyed yourselves? Daewon looked at the Brendi student. His expression softened slightly. Because we did not know any other way. Every species in this room achieved peace before reaching the stars. You developed FTL drives because your civilizations were unified, working toward a common goal. Humanity reached space because we were running from each other and toward dominance. We are not proud of this, but it is our history. Veltha stood silent for a long moment. The classroom remained absolutely quiet. Finally, he spoke. Private Daewon, you have made extraordinary claims. Can you support them with evidence? Yes, Commander. If you permit me to use the holographic display, I can show you. Velthus gestured to the display. Proceed. I believe the entire class would benefit from this education. Daewon walked to the front of the room. His movements were precise, controlled. Every eye followed him. Thos sat back down, but his expression remained hostile and disbelieving. Thank you, Commander. Daewon activated the display with his tablet. Images began to appear in the air above them. What I am about to show you is Earth's military history. I warn you now, it is not pleasant. But you asked about Marine casualty rates, and to understand that answer, you must first understand where Marines come from. The first image appeared, ancient soldiers in primitive armor carrying spears and swords. Then more images flowing one after another. Medieval knights, Napoleonic infantry, World War trenches filled with mud and blood, mushroom clouds rising over cities. This is humanity, Daewon said quietly. This is what we were, and this is why our Marines have a 2.3% casualty rate. Veltus watched the images, his expression unreadable, but inside he was beginning to understand. And what he understood disturbed him deeply. The human cadets had not been exaggerating. If anything, they had been holding back the truth. And now that truth was about to be revealed to the entire academy. Thus sat frozen in his seat, staring at the images of human warfare. For the first time in his life, he felt something he had never experienced before. Fear. The holographic display filled with images of Earth. Beautiful images at first. Blue oceans, green continents, white clouds swirling in patterns. Then the view zoomed in, and the beauty disappeared. Daewon stood beside the display, his voice steady. This is Earth, population 8 billion. We are the only intelligent species that evolved on our world. We had no aliens to fight, no external threats to unite us. So we fought ourselves. The images changed. Ancient armies clashing with bronze weapons. Thousands of soldiers locked in brutal hand-to-hand combat. The cadets in the room watched in silence, many of them looking uncomfortable. Human warfare is 10,000 years old, possibly older. We have been killing each other since before recorded history. These early battles were simple. Two groups of humans with spears and swords trying to kill each other over land, resources, or ideas. Commander Veltha studied the images carefully. Private, all species go through violent periods in their development. This is not unique to humanity. You are correct, Commander, but most species move past this phase quickly. They develop philosophy, diplomacy, unity. We did develop those things. We just kept fighting anyway. The display shifted to show Roman legions marching in perfect formation. Then medieval castles under siege, ships with cannons firing at each other across ocean waves. We created empires that lasted hundreds of years. We built civilizations of art, science, and culture. And while we did this, we were also perfecting the art of war. Every generation found new ways to kill more efficiently. A Brendy cadet raised her voice, trembling slightly. But surely you reached a point where the killing became too much. Where you chose peace? Daewon looked at her. His expression was sad. We did many times, and then we broke that peace again and again. Let me show you what I mean. The display changed to show massive armies in gray uniforms huddled in muddy trenches. Explosions sent dirt and bodies flying through the air. The images were grainy, primitive recordings, but the violence was clear. This was called World War I. 65 million soldiers fought. 20 million died. We used poison gas, machine guns, artillery that could hit targets miles away. We fought for 4 years over a strip of land smaller than some of your capital cities. Several cadets looked away from the images. One actually left the room, unable to watch. Daewon continued, his voice never changing tone. We thought that would be enough. We called it the war to end all wars. We were wrong. New images appeared. Larger armies. Bigger explosions. Cities burning. And then, an image that made even Veltas inhale sharply. A massive explosion. A cloud rising into the sky in the shape of a mushroom. Beneath it, a city simply ceased to exist. World War II. 100 million soldiers mobilized. 70 to 85 million people dead. Military and civilian combined. We invented rockets, jets, computers, and nuclear weapons. That image you see is an atomic bomb. We dropped 2 of them on cities. Each bomb killed over 100,000 people instantly. The room was absolutely silent now. Not even whispers. Cadets from warrior species looked shocked. Those from peaceful species looked horrified. Thos finally found his voice. You are saying your species developed weapons that could destroy cities? While still on your own planet? Yes, and we built thousands of them. By the time we achieved spaceflight, we had enough nuclear weapons to destroy all life on Earth 50 times over. Velthas spoke quietly. Private Daewon, I must ask. Why are you still alive? How did your species survive this madness? Barely, Commander. We came close to extinction 3 times. Nuclear war, biological warfare, environmental collapse. Each time we stepped back from the edge at the last moment. And each time we learned we needed to change. But changing and stopping are not the same thing. The display shifted again. Modern soldiers in advanced armor, precision weapons. Smaller conflicts but no less deadly. Even as we unified, we continued to fight. Regional wars, civil wars, counterterrorism operations. We never truly stopped. We just got more selective about who we fought and why. Instructor Vex spoke up from the side. This is horrifying, but I fail to see how it explains your casualty rates. If anything, constant warfare should produce higher casualties, not lower. That is where you misunderstand, sir. Daewon switched the display again. Now it showed training footage. Soldiers running obstacle courses, practicing with weapons, studying tactics. We did not just fight constantly. We learned constantly. Every battle taught us lessons. Every defeat made us adapt. Every victory showed us what worked. The images changed to show Earth's Marine Corps. Soldiers in training, faces determined. Combat footage from dozens of small wars. The United Earth Marine Corps was created from the American Marine Corps, which had existed for over 300 years before we reached space. They had a motto, first to fight. They were the soldiers who went into the worst situations with the least support and came out victorious. Daewon pulled up statistics, numbers that made the cadets lean forward to read. Battle of Belleau Wood, Earth year 1918. 9,000 Marines fought 40,000 enemy soldiers. Marine casualties 1,800. Enemy casualties 9,500. The Marines won. He changed the display. Chosin Reservoir 1950. 15,000 Marines surrounded by 120,000 enemy soldiers in negative 40-degree temperatures. They fought for 17 days, broke the encirclement, and marched out with their wounded and their dead. 25,000 enemy casualties. Thos was shaking his head. These numbers make no sense. The Marines should have been destroyed in both battles. They should have been. But Marines do not fight by what should happen. They fight by what must happen. Velthus was putting pieces together in his mind. You are saying that your low casualty rates come from experience. That humanity has spent so long fighting that you have perfected the art of survival in combat. Partially correct, Commander. But there is more to it. May I show you something else? At Velthas's nod, Daewon brought up a simple text document. It was the Marine Rifleman's Creed, written in English with a translation below it. This is what every Marine memorizes before they graduate training. It explains the mindset. One of the cadets read aloud from the translation. My rifle is my best friend. It is my life. I must master it as I must master my life. Without me, my rifle is useless. Without my rifle, I am useless. The cadet stopped, disturbed. This is about a weapon, not about life or honor or duty. Just a weapon. Keep reading, Daewon said quietly. The cadet continued. I will learn my rifle as a brother. I will learn its weaknesses, its strength, its parts and ammunition. I will keep my rifle clean and ready. We will become part of each other. Another cadet picked up the reading. Before God, I swear this creed. My rifle and I are the defenders of my country. We are the masters of our enemy. We are the saviors of my life. So be it until victory is America's and there is no enemy. The room was quiet. Finally, a small Paxian cadet spoke up nervously. This sounds like a prayer to violence. It is not prayer, Daewon corrected. It is a promise. Every Marine promises to be so skilled with their weapon that they can defend others. The rifle is not the point. The point is mastery. Perfect skill. Absolute readiness, Velthus was beginning to understand. Your Marines train to a level beyond what we consider necessary. Yes, Commander. A Marine trains for 8 months before their first assignment. They fire thousands of rounds. They run hundreds of miles. They study tactics, history, weapons, hand-to-hand combat, survival skills, first aid, communications, and leadership. And when they finish this basic training, they are considered barely qualified to start learning their actual job. A Kryn cadet who had been silent until now spoke up. How long does a Marine train before being considered expert? There is no such thing as an expert Marine, sir. There are only Marines who train harder. My grandfather was a Marine for 30 years. He told me he learned something new every single day. The moment you think you know everything is the moment you become a casualty. Daewon changed the display one more time. It showed a list of battles, dozens of them spanning centuries. Next to each battle was a casualty ratio. And in every single case, Marine casualties were lower than enemy casualties, often dramatically lower. This is the pattern, Commander. Marines fight outnumbered. They fight in terrible conditions. They fight when other forces would retreat. And they win because they prepare for exactly these situations. Low casualty rates are not luck. They are the result of training, experience, and a refusal to accept failure. Thos stood up again, his voice challenging but less confident than before. You still have not answered the original question. What about the enemy casualty rates? Daewon met his eyes. Are you sure you want that answer? Yes, very well. Daewon pulled up another set of statistics. The numbers appeared in holographic text large enough for everyone to read. Average enemy casualties when fighting Earth Marines, 85% in peer combat. 93% in near-peer combat, 98% when Marines have technological or tactical advantage. The classroom erupted into chaos. Cadets were shouting questions, arguing, denying what they saw. Velthus had to call for order 3 times before the noise died down. No, sir. 3 days had passed since the classroom incident. The academy was buzzing with rumors. Human cadets found themselves watched wherever they went. Some cadets kept their distance. Others asked questions, curious and cautious. Thos had spent those 3 days in his quarters studying everything he could find about Earth military history. The more he read, the less he understood. How could such a violent species also create beautiful art, music, and literature? How could they be so brutal in war yet so compassionate in peace? It made no sense. So he decided to find out for himself. He would challenge the humans to a combat simulation. If they were truly as skilled as Daewon claimed, they would prove it. If not, they would be exposed as frauds who relied on shock and propaganda. The simulation chamber was the Academy's pride. It could recreate any combat environment with perfect accuracy. Gravity, temperature, atmospheric composition, everything felt real. The weapons fired simulated rounds that registered as hits but caused no actual harm. Pain feedback was optional. Most cadets kept it on low settings. Thos had assembled his team carefully. Krev, a Kryn warrior with 2 centuries of training. Morta, a Morgothi known for her tactical thinking. Lexus, a Talrexian who could process battlefield data faster than most computers. And himself, trained since childhood in Vrelian combat arts. The human team consisted of 5 cadets Thos had barely noticed before. Daewon as team leader. Hee-Jin, a quiet female who specialized in tactics. Taemin, a large male who carried heavy weapons. Subin, a female who handled communications. And Young-Soo, who was listed as a medic. Commander Vel'Thas stood in the observation deck above the simulation chamber. He was not alone. Several other instructors had come to watch. Word had spread quickly. Even High Marshal Krell had arrived, the Academy's superintendent. Krell was ancient even by galactic standards and rarely attended cadet exercises. "This is unusual," Krell said to Vel'Thas. "Why the interest in a simple simulation?" "Because, Marshal, I think we are about to learn something important about our newest allies." Also in the observation deck was Lieutenant Jae-Hwan, the senior human instructor at the Academy. He stood quietly in the corner, his expression unreadable. When Vel'Thas asked if he wanted to advise his cadets, Jae-Hwan had simply shaken his head. "They do not need my advice, Commander. They know what to do." The scenario was set. Urban warfare, hostage extraction. A civilian was being held in a fortified building by 30 hostile combatants. The building was in the middle of a simulated city, with narrow streets and multiple ambush points. Standard galactic doctrine called for negotiation first, overwhelming force second. Success was defined as extracting the hostage alive with minimal casualties to both teams and civilians. The simulation would track everything: ammunition used, time taken, casualties inflicted, and collateral damage. Thos's team entered the simulation first. They moved professionally using standard Union military tactics. They took cover, established fields of fire, and sent Lexus forward to attempt negotiation with the enemy AI. The negotiation failed after 12 minutes. The enemy AI was programmed to be hostile and unreasonable. This was expected. Thos ordered the assault. His team performed well. They used suppressive fire to keep enemy heads down while advancing in pairs. They cleared rooms methodically, checking corners, calling out contacts. It was textbook warfare, exactly as taught in the Academy. 47 minutes later, they extracted the hostage. 3 team members registered as wounded. 8 enemy combatants were neutralized. The rest retreated or surrendered. 0 civilian casualties. The hostage was safe. In the observation deck, the instructors nodded approvingly. "Excellent execution," one commented. "Minimal casualties, objective achieved." Vel'Thas said nothing. He was watching Lieutenant Jae-Hwan, who had not reacted at all. "Lieutenant, your assessment?" Jae-Hwan glanced at the statistics. "By Union standards, that was very good. And by human standards? Too slow. Too predictable. Too many opportunities for casualties." He paused. "But they are not Marines." Now it was the human team's turn. They entered the simulation chamber and took up positions at the starting point. For 2 full minutes, they did not move. They simply observed, looking at buildings, streets, and sightlines. Thos watched from a monitor in the debriefing room, confused. What are they doing? Why are they not moving? In the observation deck, Vel'Thas asked the same question. "They are reading the battlefield," Jae-Hwan explained. "Marines do not rush. They observe, plan, then execute violently." Finally, Daewon spoke into the team channel. "Rules of engagement?" Jae-Hwan's voice came back over the comm. "Academy standard. Minimize casualties, ours or theirs." There was a long pause. Everyone in the observation deck heard it. The question was simple, but the implication was enormous. Jae-Hwan answered carefully. "Ours, Marine." "Understood." "Going loud in 3. "Going loud?" Vel'Thas asked. "What does that mean?" He got his answer 3 seconds later. Taemin placed a breaching charge on a wall that nobody expected them to breach. Not the door, not a window, but a solid wall on the building's side. At the same moment, Subin threw flashbang grenades through 3 separate windows on different floors. The explosions were simultaneous. The wall blew inward in a shower of simulated debris. The flashbangs detonated with blinding light and deafening sound, and the Marines poured through like a flood. There was no suppressive fire, no cautious advancement, no checking corners from a distance. The humans moved through the building like they owned it, flowing from room to room with terrifying speed. Hyejin was not just following Day One. She was reading the battle 3 moves ahead, calling out enemy positions before they appeared. Subin was not just communicating. She was predicting enemy reactions and adjusting tactics in real time. Young Su, the medic, was firing his weapon with the same accuracy as everyone else. In Union doctrine, medics were support personnel who avoided combat. This human medic fought like a rifleman who happened to know first aid. And Day One led from the front, always the first through every door, his weapon moving with mechanical precision. Every shot found a target. Every movement had a purpose. The simulation lasted 4 minutes and 30 seconds. When it ended, the statistics appeared on the displays. Every instructor in the observation deck stared in silence. Hostage extracted, success. Friendly casualties, 0. Enemy casualties, 30 neutralized, 0 escaped. Civilian casualties, 0, time 4 minutes 30 seconds. Ammunition efficiency, 92%. Impossible, someone whispered. High Marshal Krell leaned forward, his old eyes sharp. Run the simulation again. Check for errors. They ran it again. The results were verified. There were no errors. In the simulation chamber, the human team was already checking their weapons, preparing for another mission. They were not celebrating. They were not even breathing hard. This was just another training exercise to them. Day One's voice came over the comm. Ready for next scenario, sir. Veltas found his voice. Stand down, Private. Report to debriefing. The 2 teams gathered in the debriefing room. Thos and his team looked shaken. The human team looked calm, almost bored. They stood at attention, waiting for questions. Veltas did not know where to start. Finally, he asked the obvious question. How? Day One answered simply. Speed and violence of action, sir. The enemy cannot kill you if they are already dead. But you had no casualties. You were outnumbered 6 to 1. You should have lost at least 1 team member. Why, sir? The question was so genuine that Veltas was taken aback. Because the mathematics of combat suggest that in close quarters against multiple enemies, casualties are inevitable. Hyejin spoke up. Respectfully, sir, that math assumes the enemy has time to shoot back. We did not give them that time. Thos finally exploded. This is insane. You assaulted through walls. You used explosives in a hostage situation. You moved through fatal funnels without hesitation. Everything you did violates basic tactical doctrine. Taemin looked at him. Your doctrine, not ours. Your methods are reckless. Our methods keep Marines alive, Day One said quietly. Respectfully, sir, your team took 47 minutes. That is 47 minutes where the hostage could be executed. 47 minutes where enemy reinforcements could arrive. 47 minutes where everything could go wrong. We followed proper procedures, and you got 3 of your team wounded. In a real battle, they would be dead. Subin added. We trained to end fights as quickly as possible because every second of combat is a second someone can die. Speed saves lives. Veltas held up a hand for silence. Private Day One, explain your tactics. Why the wall breach instead of the door? Doors are fatal funnels, sir. The enemy expects you to come through doors. They stack weapons on doors. A wall breach creates surprise and confusion. The enemy looks at the door while we come through the wall. And the flashbangs? Simultaneous assault on multiple levels. The enemy has to choose where to defend. While they are blind and deaf from the flashbangs, we are already in the room. What if the hostage had been near the explosion? She was not, sir. Hyejin identified her probable location by reading enemy positioning. Hostages are kept away from external walls and windows. The enemy does not want a rescue sniper to have a shot, so the hostage is always in an interior room. We breached an exterior wall too. The briefing room felt smaller than it should. High Marshal Krell sat at the head of the table, his ancient eyes moving from one instructor to another. Commander Veltas stood at the display, pulling up the simulation data for the 5th time. The numbers did not change no matter how many times he looked at them. Lieutenant Jae-hwan remained standing at the back of the room. He had been asked to stay after the cadets were dismissed. The other instructors kept glancing at him, like they were trying to solve a puzzle they did not understand. "Explain this to me again," Krell said, his voice tired. "How is it possible for 5 cadets to defeat 30 enemy combatants in less than 5 minutes, with 0 friendly casualties?" Velthus pulled up the tactical replay. The hologram showed the assault from multiple angles. Every movement, every shot, every decision played out in perfect detail. They used what humans call shock and awe tactics, Marshal. Overwhelming force applied with extreme speed. The enemy AI did not have time to react effectively. Professor Min, the Talrexian ethics instructor, spoke up. "But the risk involved is enormous. One mistake and the entire team could have been killed. How can this be considered sound tactics?" Jae-hwan finally spoke. "Because they do not make mistakes, Professor. Or more accurately, they train until mistakes become rare enough to be acceptable risks. Nothing is without risk," Min argued. "Your cadets assaulted through walls, threw explosives near a hostage, and moved through what you call fatal funnels. Any of those actions could have resulted in mission failure or casualties." "Could have, yes. Did not know." Jae-hwan walked forward to stand beside the hologram. "May I?" At Krell's nod, he manipulated the display. The replay slowed down, showing frame-by-frame analysis. "Watch Hae-jin here. She identifies the hostage location 40 seconds into the mission, not by seeing the hostage, but by reading enemy behavior. See how the guards cluster around this interior room? That tells her the hostage is there. So the wall breach is placed on the opposite side of the building, away from the hostage." He moved the timeline forward. "Now watch Day 1. He enters first, but look at his weapon orientation. He is not just shooting, he is prioritizing targets by threat level. The enemy with the rifle gets shot before the one reaching for an alarm. The one moving toward the hostage room gets shot before the one taking cover." The instructors watched in silence as Jae-hwan broke down every second of the assault. "Young-soo, your medic, is behind Taemin. But look at his position. He can shoot past Taemin without endangering him. He can provide covering fire or medical support instantly. Every position serves multiple purposes. Every Marine covers others while being covered themselves." Velthus leaned forward. "This level of coordination requires either telepathy or years of training together. These cadets have been at the academy for only 6 months. They trained together on Earth before coming here," Jae-hwan explained. "But more importantly, they were all trained in the same doctrine with the same standards. Any Marine can work with any other Marine because they all think the same way in combat." Krell drummed his fingers on the table. "Lieutenant, I need you to answer a question honestly. Are human military capabilities a threat to the Union?" The room went very quiet. This was the question everyone had been thinking, but nobody wanted to ask directly. Jae-hwan met the Marshal's eyes. "That depends on your perspective, sir." "Explain." "If you are asking whether humans can defeat Union forces in combat, the answer is probably yes in most scenarios. We have 10,000 years of experience fighting wars. We have tactics and strategies developed through millions of battles. We have a mindset that sees combat as a problem to solve through overwhelming force." Several instructors shifted uncomfortably. Jae-hwan continued, "But if you are asking whether humans would attack the Union, the answer is absolutely not. We joined the Union because we wanted to be part of something greater than ourselves. We wanted allies, not enemies. We wanted to protect, not conquer." "Pretty words," Professor Min said coldly. "But your combat doctrine suggests otherwise. You speak of overwhelming force and high enemy casualties. This sounds like conquest to me. With respect, Professor, you are confusing capability with intent. We can fight brutally when needed. We choose to fight only when necessary." Krell held up a hand. "Let us move past philosophy to practicality. Lieutenant, what is the actual casualty rate when enemies engage Earth Marines in real combat? Not simulation, not theory. Actual numbers." Jae-hwan hesitated for the first time. "Marshal, those numbers are classified by Earth Military Command. I am ordering you to share them. This is a matter of Union security." After a long moment, Jae-hwan nodded. He pulled up his tablet and transferred data to the main display. Numbers appeared, cold and stark. In peer combat, where enemies have similar technology and training, Marine casualties average 2 to 3%. Enemy casualties average 85%. The room erupted in shocked voices. Krell called for silence. "Continue, Lieutenant." In near-peer combat, where enemies are slightly less advanced, Marine casualties drop to 1 to 2%. Enemy casualties rise to 93%. And when Marines have technological advantage, less than 1% friendly casualties. 98% enemy casualties. Veltha stood abruptly. Those are extinction numbers. You are describing total annihilation of enemy forces. Yes, Commander. That is exactly what I am describing. The silence that followed was absolute. Even the air circulation system seemed too loud. Professor Min found her voice first. This is barbaric. Civilized warfare accepts that both sides will take casualties. Your numbers suggest you do not accept enemy survival as an outcome. We accept enemy surrender, Professor. We offer it before every engagement. Those who surrender are treated according to galactic conventions for prisoners, but those who continue to fight we destroy completely. Why? The question came from a Brendi instructor named Ven, who taught diplomacy. Why not use proportional force? Why not accept some casualties in exchange for allowing enemies to retreat? Jae-Hwan looked at the gentle creature. Because every enemy left alive is an enemy who might kill one of my Marines tomorrow. Because accepting casualties means accepting that some of my people will die when they did not have to. Because our job is not to fight fair. Our job is to win and go home. But the psychological cost, Ven pressed. Your soldiers must carry enormous guilt for causing such casualties. They carry the weight of their actions, yes. But they would carry far more guilt if they failed to protect their fellow Marines. We train our people to live with the reality of combat. We provide mental health support. We honor those who fall, but we do not apologize for being good at what we do. Krell stood up and walked to the window, looking out at the academy grounds. Cadets from 100 species trained together below, unaware of the conversation happening above them. When humanity applied to join the Union, your ambassador assured us you were a peaceful species. We are peaceful, Marshal. We have not started a war in over 40 years. But you could. Yes, we could. So could you. So could the Kryn, the Vrelians, the Morgathi. Every species here has the capacity for violence. The difference is we do not hide from that capacity. We acknowledge it, train it, and control it. Veltha spoke up. What concerns me is not that you can fight. It is how you fight. Your methods are effective, but they violate everything we teach about proportional response and acceptable losses. Jae-Hwan turned to face him. Commander, may I ask you a question? Proceed. When you teach cadets about acceptable losses, what is the purpose? To prepare them for the reality that combat has costs. That sometimes people die even when you do everything right. And we agree on that, but we disagree on what doing everything right means. You teach that some casualties are acceptable. We teach that every casualty is a failure we will work to prevent. But you cannot prevent all casualties. No, we cannot. But we can minimize them by being better, faster, and more violent than our enemies. Every second of hesitation is a second for the enemy to shoot back. Every moment of proportional response is a moment for them to call reinforcements. We do not give them those seconds or moments. Professor Min shook her head. I still believe your methods are too extreme. They may be effective, but they come at a moral cost. Perhaps, Jae-Hwan acknowledged. But I would rather carry the moral cost of killing enemies than the moral cost of burying Marines who died because I was too cautious. Krell turned back from the window. This briefing is now classified at the highest level. Everything discussed here stays in this room. Lieutenant Jae-Hwan, you are dismissed. Jae-Hwan saluted and left. The remaining instructors sat in uncomfortable silence. Finally, Veltha spoke. Marshal, what do we do with this information? We adapt, Krell said simply. The Union has never faced an enemy that truly threatened our existence. We fight wars of politics and resources, with agreed-upon rules and expectations. But what if we face an enemy who does not follow those rules? What if we face an enemy who fights like humans? Then we would need humans to fight them, Veltha said quietly. Exactly. And that is why we must continue integrating human forces into the Union military. Not despite their brutal efficiency, but because of it. Professor Min stood up, clearly upset. I must protest, Marshal. Allowing who? The council chamber was built to impress. Massive columns rose toward a ceiling that displayed the rotating image of the galaxy itself. Representatives from the 12 founding military powers sat in a circle, each at their own station designed for their specific species. This was where the Union's military decisions were made. High Marshal Krell stood at the center, feeling older than his many years. He had called this emergency session and he already regretted it. The topic displayed on every representative's screen said simply, Human Military Integration Assessment. But everyone in the room knew what it really meant. What have we allowed into our alliance? The Vrelian representative, Supreme Commander Thane, spoke first. His voice was sharp, accusatory. Marshal Krell, you assured us that humanity was a peaceful species seeking partnership. Yet the reports from the Academy suggest we have welcomed predators into our home. Krell kept his voice level. Humanity is peaceful. They have not initiated aggression against any Union member. Not yet, Thane countered, but the data you have sent us is deeply disturbing. He pulled up statistics on the main display. Look at these numbers. Human military forces have casualty rates far below any known species, while inflicting casualties far above acceptable norms. This suggests either false data or combat capabilities that far exceed our own. A Kryn general named Ralthor leaned forward, his scales gleaming under the chamber lights. I have reviewed the combat simulations personally. The human tactics are sound but reckless. They prioritize speed and aggression over safety. This is the behavior of berserkers, not professional soldiers. Or, said a calm voice from across the circle, it is the behavior of soldiers who have perfected their craft through necessity. The speaker was Admiral Kesh of the Talrexian fleet. She was known for her analytical mind and political neutrality. I have studied the data as well. The human approach to combat is radically different from ours, yes, but different does not mean wrong. Different means dangerous, Thane insisted. Their combat doctrine teaches total annihilation of enemy forces. This violates every principle of proportional response that the Union stands for. Krell activated the holographic display, showing Earth's military history. The other representatives had seen this before, but he knew they needed to see it again with fresh eyes. Humanity spent 10,000 years fighting itself. Every weapon system we use they invented while fighting each other. Nuclear weapons, biological warfare, orbital bombardment platforms. They developed all of this before achieving peace. The display showed images from Earth's wars. Ancient battles with primitive weapons. Modern conflicts with devastating technology. The representatives watched in uncomfortable silence. They did not join the Union because they were weak, Krell continued. They joined because they finally understood their own strength and chose to use it for protection rather than destruction. Words, Thane spat. Show me actions that prove this claim. Before Krell could respond, the chamber doors opened. A human woman entered, flanked by two guards. She was Ambassador Kyung-mi, Earth's representative to the Galactic Council. She had not been invited to this meeting. Ambassador, Thane said coldly, this is a closed military session. You have no authority to be here. I have every authority, Kyung-mi replied, her voice calm but firm. You are discussing my people. I will be heard. Krell should have stopped her. Protocol demanded it, but he wanted to hear what she would say. He gestured for her to continue. Kyung-mi walked to the center of the chamber, standing beside Krell. You want actions? Let me tell you about actions. 3 days ago, a Union surveyor ship was attacked by pirates near the Outer Rim. The ship sent a distress call. The nearest Union military vessel was 6 hours away. She pulled up a new display. A human patrol ship, the UMS Seoul, was 3 hours away. They received the distress call and responded. When they arrived, they found the survey ship disabled, being boarded by 20 pirates in combat armor. The display showed combat footage. The human ship docked with the pirate vessel. Marines poured through, moving with the same terrifying efficiency that had been seen in the Academy simulations. The engagement lasted 7 minutes. All surveyor crew members were rescued unharmed. 18 pirates were killed. 2 surrendered and were taken prisoner. 0 human casualties. She let that sink in before continuing. The survey crew was Talrexian. The captain sent a personal message thanking the humans for saving his crew when Union forces were too far away to help. Admiral Kesh nodded slowly. I received that captain's report. He spoke highly of the human Marines. Because we do what we say we will do, Kyung-mi stated. We promise to protect Union citizens. We do so without hesitation, without asking if they are human or not, without calculating acceptable losses. Thane was not convinced. One successful rescue does not address the larger concern. Your military methods are too violent, too extreme. What happens when you decide the Union itself is a threat? What stops you from turning those methods against us? Kyung-mi turned to face him directly. The same thing that stopped us from destroying ourselves when we had the chance. Choice. Humanity chose to evolve beyond constant warfare. We chose to seek peace. We chose to join the Union as partners. But you could choose differently tomorrow. So could you. So could any species here. The capacity for violence exists in all of us. The question is not whether we have that capacity, but what we choose to do with it. Ralthor spoke up. Ambassador, you speak of choice. But your military training suggests your soldiers are conditioned to respond with maximum force automatically. Where is the choice in that? The choice is made before the battle, Kyungmi explained. Every Marine is trained to think, to assess, to decide. They are not mindless killers. They are intelligent warriors who can choose when to fight and when to show mercy. But once the choice to fight is made, they fight to win. She pulled up another set of data. Look at this. Human peacekeeping forces in the Brendi colonies. They have been there for 2 years. 0 incidents of excessive force. 0 civilian complaints. They use the minimum force necessary to maintain order. But when they do use force, Thane pointed out, it is devastating. The statistics show that criminals who resist human peacekeepers have a 94% casualty rate. Yes, because we give them a choice. Surrender peacefully and you will be treated fairly. Resist violently and we will end the resistance quickly. A new voice entered the conversation. It was Counselor Vesh, a Paxian known for his wisdom. I believe we are approaching this question from the wrong direction. We are asking whether humans are dangerous, but the real question is whether they are dangerous to us specifically. The chamber quieted as Vesh continued. Humanity has shown consistent behavior. They protect their allies aggressively. They respond to threats with overwhelming force, but they have not initiated aggression. So the question becomes, are we their allies or their threats? We are neither yet, Thane argued. We are evaluating partners, and what we are evaluating concerns us. Krell decided to share the information he had been holding back. There is something else you should know. I had Lieutenant Jae Hwan, the senior human instructor, questioned about real combat statistics. The numbers I showed you earlier were from human versus human conflicts. Historical data, he pulled up new numbers. These are projections based on combat modeling. If human forces faced galactic standard military forces with current Union technology, the projections are even more dramatic. The new numbers appeared. In every scenario, human casualties remained below 3%. Enemy casualties ranged from 90 to 98% depending on conditions. The chamber erupted in alarmed voices. Representatives stood, arguing over each other. Krell let it continue for a moment before calling for order. I share your concerns, he said loudly. But I also recognize reality. These numbers do not lie. Humanity possesses military capabilities that exceed our own, possibly by a significant margin. We have 3 choices, he held up one finger. First, we can expel humanity from the Union based on fear of what they might do. This makes us an enemy they must defend against. A second finger. Second, we can restrict their military operations, limiting their effectiveness. This insults them and wastes the very capabilities we need. A third finger. Third, we can embrace them as true allies, learning from their methods while helping them integrate into our society. This gives us access to their protection while maintaining influence over their actions. Ralthor crossed his arms. You are asking us to trust predators. I am asking you to trust allies, Krell corrected. There is a difference. Admiral Cash stood. I propose a compromise. We continue human integration, but with oversight. Human forces will operate within Union command structure. Their tactics will be reviewed and approved before implementation in joint operations. We learn from them while ensuring they remain accountable. It was a political solution, designed to appease both sides without truly satisfying either. But it might work. Thane considered it. I could support this. But I want regular reports on all human military activities. Any deviation from approved protocols will result in immediate review. Agreed, Kyungmi said, surprising them. We have nothing to hide. We will operate with full transparency.